Prologue. The Hunter at Dusk. The hunter lay in the grass on his front, eyes forward and feet behind him, cloaked by the bushes he watched from. The stock of his rifle rested gently against his shoulder, and his warm breath created steam as it exited his nose at a steady pace. Autumn was setting, not cold enough to snow yet, but fall was setting over the plants, and there was less and less green foliage in the forests every time he visited. Animals would be out gathering what supplies they needed before winter came. The hunter here was doing the same. While hunting, the calm and quiet of the forest overtook him, and his mind ran with ideas as he sat there watching the forest in front of him. Waiting for the chance to overtake prey seemed a natural occupation to him. Man needed to be sustained by food. Therefore, making a living selling meat and hides matched the disposition of his ancestors who, without agriculture to provide for them, would have likely had a life similar to his own, hunting and traveling. As these thoughts passed through his head, he saw it come into view in the distance. A large deer gracefully stepped into the field of grass before him, and lowered its head to feed upon whatever foliage still remained, untouched by the effects of the season's change. Dew fell from a limb and landed on the barrel of the rifle as the man shifted into position to aim. However, in doing so, his arm rested on some unnoticed twig hidden within or underneath the bush and made a cracking noise. The deer quickly rose its head, staring in the direction of the noise, surveying the area for any potential danger. The hunter's muscles became as stiff as possible. He reasoned in his mind that the deer had to stay there. The noise was too quiet. Small animals must constantly be making sounds such as this as they lead their daily woodland lives. Even as he rationalized through these must-be facts about the wild, the hunter dared not even breathe. No matter the case, after a few agonizing moments, the deer did finally shift its attention back down to the meal it had been grazing on beforehand. The hunter would not let another opportunity for his prey to become wary of him again. He focused his rifle on an area behind the deer's shoulder, where the bullet would miss shoulder blade and enter into the animal's chest, piercing its heart, killing it quickly, if not instantly. Then, he fired. There was that moment that is defined by the sound of a large blast, the moment when the hunter makes his presence known to all of the forest. Birds swiftly exited their treetop perches. Dew that was precariously positioned on branches would fall, and as a general rule, the movement of life in the forest would move away from the blast that had disturbed the silence therein. In the case of the hunter's prey, the distance traveled would not be far, merely a few yards. The shot had found its mark. The deer would be cleaned and brought back to his camp. Its hide hung to dry. Other than the meat the hunter would cook and eat right there over his campfire, its flesh would be smoked and dried. This would serve as later meals, as well as something to sell to merchants in the towns he would be reaching, soon enough, as he continued his travels. Finally, after the long day, he would find rest under the stars. The next morning the hunter crated up his wares of smoked meats and various furs and hides. He placed these into the trunk of his car. Afterwards, he climbed into the driver's seat and began driving aimlessly forward, reasoning that he would eventually hit the next town as the road had to lead somewhere. Part 1, in which the hunter sees 5 towns before the 2 are properly introduced. Number 1. Town of Deferred Happiness. The air rushed by the hunter's head as he drove, the hood of the car being down. If there was anyone on these roads around him, he would probably appear to be a dark purple blur on the road, continuing to pick up speed. But there were no others on that road. There was wilderness on either side, wood and grass interrupted only by that slice of road that cut through it. He had no others out on that road to worry about, and so he drove as quickly as the car could go, his hair sprawling outward behind him. Sometimes he thought he lived for these moments of peace to himself, the time between towns. Eventually he left the wooded area and was surrounded on either side by grass fields instead. He looked for signs of a town and eventually he saw something in the distance. On the horizon there appeared to be a tall wall, circular and towering over what must be a well-protected city. Strange, thought the man. Is there any reason for this town to defend itself from the outside? As he approached the large wall, he saw that there were merchants and some thrown-together shacks around the outside of the wall. He slowed his car in front of one of the merchant centers and parked. The building appeared to be run down, but that did not mean he could not make a good trade here. Inside the shop was canned food, soups mostly, and there was also bars of granola, both of which would be good complements to his diet, which chiefly consisted of what he hunted. These dried meats were also the staple of his trade. There was a man at the counter who seemed to be the owner of the shop. He took a bag of jerky he had made from his pocket and handed it to the merchant. How much would a box of that be worth? and the products you carry, that is. The merchant tasted the jerky, and seemed to think for a few moments. This is pretty good quality. I could use a box of this, but not for too much. So a case of this granola and a box of these canned goods then? The hunter asked, not really interested in any sort of haggling. He only wished to change the monotony that was his diet by trading for whatever food he could. The merchant seemed to think this was a good enough deal, and nodded. So with that, the hunter returned to his car, to take out a box of dried meat from it. The people surrounding him eyed his car. It did stand out in this town. There were no other cars surrounding it, and only the occasional horse and buggy. Many others seemed to have no form of transportation at all, or a form of lodging it would seem for those who sat in tattered clothes leaning against the wall of the city. He brought the box inside the merchant's store. Yeah. The merchant examined the box. Yes, I believe I could probably get a few extra tickets in just by giving them this. What do you mean, tickets? You didn't come here for the drawing? The merchant questioned, sounding honestly baffled. Most everyone who comes here to the outskirt of the walls come for the drawing. What's the drawing? Well, to start with, there is that great city before us. Inside those walls they say there is no hunger, no want for anything. You can spend time there idly or chasing after an art or interest. For a merchant like me, that sounds a good deal. Living in leisure at retirement is the long-term aim. If I get into the city by the drawing, that would just be early retirement. If not, I'll be back for the next drawing. But for those others you see around the city, half clothed due to the rags they wear, and half fed at that, the drawing is a sign of hope to be freed from that destitution. But they rarely win. Why do they rarely win? Well, everyone gets a ticket in the drawing no matter who they are, as long as they are here when the drawing takes place. But you can give goods to the center in exchange for more tickets in the drawing, so merchants like me take advantage of that to stack luck in our favor. But that doesn't take away the hope any of the homeless have for winning. It honestly seems a bit of a trap for them. They don't move on, for they wouldn't reach any far land by the time of the next drawing. The hope they will eventually be chosen to enter the city keeps them locked into their destitution. Can I pass through the town within those walls? I'm just a traveler who wants to get to the next stretch of road, that's all. Yeah, probably. They would probably like for an outsider like you to enter and spread word on the outside of the city. They are braggadocious in that manner. The hunter turned to leave, but he had a sudden thought. He doubted they would have anything, but he would try anyway. I've got more boxes of jerky, and furs too if you have any ammunition here. Ammunition? The hunter took a pistol from his holster and removed the clip, showing the bullets to the merchant. Like this, but for rifles or shotguns as well. You have anything like these? I don't think I do. I've never seen anything like these before. What's its purpose? And while I'm at it, just what kind of carriage do you have outside? I've never seen anything like that in my life. One of these towns, huh? The farther the hunter went, the more varied in terms of technology and beliefs these towns seem to have. Don't worry about it. Travel far enough and you'll come across these things as well. He exited the store and returned to his car. He ignored the glares he was getting from the populace around him as he headed towards the center wall, to see if he could find a way through. He found a large gated entrance in front of which was a guard. The guard asked him such as he approached. Did you come to trade wares for tickets in the drawing? I do not wish to participate in the drawing. I am a traveler. I merely wish to pass through the town. He spoke as politely as he could. It was the most quick and effective means of speaking to any type of guard without provoking a negative response. We rarely have visitors who only wish to pass through, but we do accommodate them. Only know that you will have to forfeit your right to be in the drawing if you do so. That is fine by me. I only wish to travel further. The guard opened the large gates. The hunter slowly drove his car through them, many guards spilling out of it to guard any other unwanted entry into the center town. There was no incident, though, besides one of the more raggedy-looking men being thrown hard backwards against the ground by a guard. If this was an attempt to enter the town unlawfully or mere sport for the guard, the hunter did not know. Upon entry into the center town, the man realized just how much it contrasted the outside. Neatly kept hedges and beautiful fountains stood before large, ornate houses. The disdainful glare of those on the outside replaced by curious glances by finely dressed men and women. He was guided forward by a couple of the guards, as to make sure he was just passing through. As opulent as the inner town was, it was not large. 20 or so minutes and he was in the center of the town, though he was driving at a snail's pace. There was a guard in front of and behind the car, walking at a speed that bordered on leisurely. When they were passing through the center, a man approached the guards, said a few words, and they halted. The man was wearing fine purple silk. He looked the part of royalty. The hunter stood at the ready. He had not drawn his pistol, but the situation was odd. The anxiety of the situation dissipated when the man began to speak. "There are not many travelers who go through here," the stranger began, not a hint of seriousness in his tone, though there may have been a bit of condescension. "Tell me what brings you here." "Just traveling through, sir." Politeness was the road of least resistance, the hunter knew, when it came to unwanted conversations. "A seller of furs and dried meats by trade, I presume? And what all kinds of lands have you traveled through?" The stranger began examining the hunter's cargo. "All kinds, just moving north as of now, no destination in mind, really." The stranger dropped a pelt he was holding with a look that bordered on disgust at the object. The hunter knew there was nothing in his possession to warrant interest from an individual as rich as this stranger seemed to be. "So tell me, in all of your travels, did you ever come across an aristocratic system as ingenious as ours?" I don't know." The hunter did not know how to answer. He had always been an outsider to any town he had visited, an observer, not one who passed any sort of judgment on the places he visited. "I've been to many towns. I've seen many governments from the outside. They each had their rich and poor and in between. This town is no different." "Yes, but we rule with something those others lack. Kings can be usurped looking to validate their right to rule, governments likewise overthrown by their populace. That is what we had to do. We then made an equal system where everyone owned an equal amount. However, people did not work hard enough to support everyone, not when they realized that there would be no reward for working harder than others. The ones who could left. Crops withered and people starved. But we could not go back to the old system, not when it took a revolution to get rid of it. So how could we create a hierarchical system where we in the inner city can lead and those in the outer city would still be motivated to work and support the upper class without resentment, without inequality? You may already have an idea how this was accomplished, but do you want to know how we accomplished this seemingly impossible task?" The man was clearly excited. The guards were right when they said not many travelers went through here. The man was clearly aching to tell anyone about his social theory. However, he was obviously looking at the hunter for some reaction to his question. "How did you accomplish that?" The hunter humored him. "With the raffle. Everyone has a chance in the raffle, therefore there's no real inequality, not when anyone can be chosen. Therefore there is always the hope, for anyone outside the inner city, that they can become just like us. One lucky pick from the drawing and they are the ones on the inside, and that hope allows them to withstand any sort of hardship, just to come back and participate in the next drawing. They will never try to change things. There will never be a need to stage another revolution against those in charge. There is no need to take away from the aristocrats to give the more worse-off ones a better life, not when the lap of luxury is always just out of reach, just one drawing more. And so they make our lives ever better, trading items for tickets just for a chance to be where we are. Sadly, most of them will never get any sort of payoff for what they give us, other than the hope, the chance. A negative result in the drawing for them results in nothing. It's always a positive gain for us on the inside selling the tickets, giving up their resources to get a chance," reasoned the hunter. "Not only does that mean they give their resources to the aristocrats for nothing in return, it also keeps them from taking their resources and building a new society elsewhere." What a well-crafted trap. The hunter waved goodbye to the stranger as he began moving forward once again. Not long after, it seemed he was reaching the exit on the other side of the inner city. This side of the outside wall, much like the other. Homeless and merchants, fastened by longing to be the ones picked in the drawing, to live in excess. Hope, a vice grip that one clings back onto, giving it what they can but getting nothing in return. The hunter drove his car forward, away from this town, really comprising of two towns, the one on the inside of the walls and those on the outside of the wall, stuck in a status quo that none wanted to change. It was an inert town. Not far off was a raised drawbridge, the only way across the river that fed the town, the only way further. 3 men stood in front of it, one with a shovel, another a sickle, and lastly one with an axe. The hunter looked back at the town. Some of the others there seemed to notice what was about to take place, but stood fast. All the better, the hunter presumed. He knew there was only the one way to press forward. He stepped out of the car and approached the men, keeping a safe distance. "Could you lower the bridge for me to cross?" The one with the axe answered. "You can cross, but you can leave that carriage." He gestured towards the hunter's car. "That's the bridge toll." "Are those the rules of this town?" "You know I can't accept that deal." "I'm not asking. We are taking the carriage, and as you can see the guard's not going to do anything. Town rules don't matter." The man with the axe motioned the other two men forward. The two men began to close the gap between them and the traveler. The pistol was already out of its holster. The shovel's reach would make it the first problem. The sickle was being ready to swing in a wide arc towards him. 2 shots were fired. The shovel and its owner hit the ground, its owner screaming in pain, holding the shoulder that was gushing blood. The sickle and a few fingers dismembered by the shot hit the ground, its wielder landing on his knees, sobbing and holding his mangled hand. The hunter looked at the man with the axe. "You need to wrap his hand to stop the bleeding. He should be okay. For the other, you should dig the bullet out of his shoulder. The infection could kill him. Now drop the axe so I can be on my way." In the outer town, all eyes that could see the event were glued on what was happening. The man with the axe was visibly confused as to what to do next, but anger was winning out. The man with the axe lunged forward in attack. 2 shots were fired again. Both hit the man in the chest. He fell, dead before he hit the ground. The hunter sighed. The 2 living were in no position to stop him as he lowered the bridge. The men sobbed, holding their wounds. No one from the town bothered to intervene on the departure of the hunter. The guards protecting the inner town seemingly cared only for its residents within the walls. The hunter was back in his car, and speeding again along the empty road. The increasing wind resistance throwing his hair back was refreshing.